Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about socialism. It has a perfect batting average. No, 100% of the time, it has failed. This is great. And it's failed spectacularly once again. Where? Overseas. It is coming apart at the seams in Europe. They are rioting now in the streets. Yet, here in America, we're not even paying attention to this. Like lambs to the slaughter, we're just going, yeah, bigger government. Now, why on God's green earth would we do that? Have you ever noticed that progressives never really mention what it is we're progressing to? We're just going to get better. We're going to make progress. But we we're going backwards here. Everything. They keep pushing for stronger government. Others are pushing the opposite direction. More freedom, more individual liberty, or more control, bigger government. Well, in England, the government has announced a new age of austerity, and they're planning now massive government cutbacks, entire departments slashed by up to 40%. They realize the game is over. I should say, when I say they realize, what I mean is some people realize. Pretty much everybody, except the unions. Oh, they want their power. And that's why they are behind this. The unions and the communists. They will create chaos if they don't get it. And by the way, I'm not just telling you that it's the unions and communists. I mean, I told you about this about a year and a half ago. This is the plan that came out about these. We are at a crossroads. You have to decide now, America. Progressives will tell you that the root of the word of progressive is progress. Progressing to what? And how do you make progress past this idea? We hold these truths to be self-evident. In other words, common sense, everybody can see it, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable, meaning you can't change them, you can't take them away, unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. May I ask you, what progress can be made that is higher than that concept? That all men are created equal. What that says is there's no guaranteed outcome. There's a shot. Give me a chance. Progressives, when you can answer the question of what is higher, then everyone deserves an opportunity to succeed, not a guaranteed success. Then you should be listened to seriously. When you can come up with a concept higher and more freeing than that. But I'm not going to hold my breath, because you can't. You cannot progress past this concept. You can only regress into control, bigger government, corruption, and in the end, slavery. So, America, what is it going to be? Are you in, and here's the latest from George Soros, are you in the Soros camp?
Times like this, where the private sector does not provide enough employment, you need the state to provide the fiscal stimulus to put people to work. Because to have idle resources is a waste.
Okay. And if anybody knows how to waste money, it's government. Are you in line with George Soros, or are you more in line with what Europe now? I mean, when did we stop wanting to be more like France and Europe and England? Europe is starting to realize now. Prime Minister of the UK just announced he's eliminating 192 government agencies. Who thought the English would get it before us? Why? Wall Street Journal reports he is now intent on weaning Britain off public money in hopes of reviving private enterprise, and is gambling on the idea that slashing state spending in a weak economy will restore market confidence and government finances and encourage private businesses to invest and hire enough to drive growth. England gets it. America, tonight, it's time to decide. Righty then. The wee little Aaron was helping me change the boards. Oh, the wee one. Hello, Aaron. Good to see you. Hello, America. I want to start with a couple of dates tonight. First one, top of the board, April 15th. Yeah, I know you love it. It's a special day. It's tax day. Don't you feel so charitable on April 15th? No. It's not only tax day, but it's also the deadline for Congress to complete action on their budget resolutions every year. Now, typical of government, they've only hit that deadline once in 36 years. But at least they reached a resolution. Yeah. Here we are at the end of the fiscal year and approaching the end of the year, and we don't even have a budget. Budget, schmudget. That's the politics of the past. This is the first time since a major 1974 budget process overhaul that neither chamber has even voted on a budget resolution. Before 1974, there was no formal budget process. But then we started to grow the government rapidly. And it was rapidly expanding in size. And Nixon said, I'm not going to spend this money. Yeah. So then Congress got together and passed the Congressional Budget Act of 1974. Yeah, you sleeping yet? Hang on, it gets better. Our Congress has blown off this date of April 15th. They're like, whatever. Now, why would you do that? Is there anything more important than a budget? I mean, I think we got a problem with the budget. I mean, we can't seem to spend less than we have. A financial advisor might tell some oil sheik, from Qatar or what's his name from Microsoft, say, don't worry about it. You're Bill Gates. You don't need a budget. But I'm pretty sure they'd recommend one for, you, me, and the country. So why wouldn't we pass one? Is it just really difficult because the numbers hurt their heads? Or is there another reason? Let me give you a couple more dates. November 2nd. Now, you might have heard of that date. There's an election or something going on that day. So, wait a minute. A big, bloated, out-of-control budget might be unpopular. Hey, when was the budget moved back? Oh, it's up here. Yeah, the budget process has gone from here. They just pushed it back and said, okay, we'll get to that in December. It's almost like somebody wanted to leapfrog over this one because they don't want to be on record endorsing the coming bloated, out-of-control nightmare budget and likely a massive budget deficit. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Those are complete. Am I being cynical again? Let me give you the next date. December 31st. You remember. Congress failed to come to an agreement about what they should do on the Bush tax cuts. Democrats had control. Yep, they can make permanent the current tax code, or they can change it. GOP doesn't have the power to stop it. No. Oh, Democrats are what to do. We've got to think about that one some more. Should we have the Bush tax cuts just expire at the end of the year? No, only a spineless weasel would do that. Yeah. Or would we want to raise taxes? No, only someone with a spine would do that. Hey, I got a better idea. One of the problems here is our next date. Congress is adjourned until the middle of November, November 15th. So November 15th, then we have Thanksgiving and then the Jewish and Christian holidays. It's going to be great. They have 5 working days before Thanksgiving. And you know what it's like once you get off a big vacation. And then they have a vacation again. And then they come back on November 29th, and then they got a handful of working days until the end of the year. And they got to do their Christmas shopping, too. I mean, how are they going to do the budget and the Bush tax cut? Because that one has a lot of thinking. Think. They're not going to think. The lame ducks will let the Bush tax cuts expire. You know why? What, did that expire? Oh, I was against that. But I couldn't do it. It's just me. I couldn't do anything about it. Spineless weasels appear again. The largest tax hike in the history of the United States of America are coming to a wallet near you. That will pummel an already suffering American economy. So there's just a few things colliding after the elections. Right around the New Year's, surprise, you can open this package to see that perfect storm coming right at you. By the way, let's add one more thing to it, shall we? The debt ceiling. I love this. The president and this administration knew they were going to be forced to raise the debt ceiling because of all the money they planned on spending. What is the debt ceiling, you might ask? Well, that's kind of a law that says you don't have any more money and you cannot spend any more. But once in a while, you know, what are laws if they're not meant to be bent or broken? This is how it works. The debt ceiling. Let's say you and your wife are going to Vegas. And your wife is like, honey, I don't think this is a good idea. We're really broke. And you're like, honey, we're only going to spend $100, okay? What if we win? And she's like, you never win. I mean, they wouldn't have the big, huge buildings with all the lights and tables and all the people. And we wouldn't be living in the house if we were going to win. You know what I mean? And it really works out. Yeah. Well, you get there and you see all the flashing lights. And somehow or another you say, okay, all right, only $100. And she's like, okay. But when you get there, in the time it took you to drive there, you've convinced your wife to raise your gambling limit, your debt ceiling, to $500. Now, she's a little worried, so she decides to go to the bar and get a drink. Not an alcoholic one, because your wife is the smart one in the family, and she knows somebody's got to stay sober. Well, when she gets back, you've already burned through the $500. She's like, what? And you tell her, don't worry, honey. Just raise the gambling limit to $1,000. Just make it all back. It's going to be great. She's sober. She knows it's wrong. But she's like, okay. Well, this keeps repeating itself. Before you know it, you're $150,000 in the hole. Republicans and Democrats are hoping that you're an alcoholic so they can convince you to keep spending and betting. By the way, I should point out at this point of the story, the wife is you, and you really can't say no, because if she dares to say no, you'll have to tell her, okay, bad news, I've already kind of spent that money. See, I'm no longer really asking you, I'm just kind of telling you that we're going to spend it because we've already spent it. Your marriage is going to work out great. And don't worry, that house will pay for itself. Our current debt limit is $14.29 trillion. When Obama came into office, and remember the big problem was the debt, it was $11.3 trillion. Now he had to increase it for the stimulus. You know, he inherited this from Bush, $789 billion. Then the Democrats increased it again, just like we told you they would around this time last year. We said that, and lo and behold, ho, ho, ho. The present we told you was coming in your Christmas stocking, they raised it by $290 billion because, once again, we got a little too close to the ceiling, and it's hot up there. But the latest one is a little more interesting. Earlier this year, we raised the debt ceiling again by $1.9 trillion. This is great. Now, let's look at the debt clock, shall we? As we accumulate all of that beautiful debt. Look at that. Isn't that a pretty number? Can somebody not tell President Obama what comes after $1 trillion, please? We start to approach the debt ceiling, and that brings us to another date. Another date. That's not on the board. You know what it is? That's great. The next time Congress is going to be forced to decide on the debt ceiling, it's going to be early 2011. That's great. That means the Republican Congress is going to be forced to vote on that debt ceiling. So, what to do if you're a Republican? Well, you can say, I'm going to be tough against it because that husband's been lying to that wife the whole time. And they'll choose not to raise it. Great. The whole house will collapse. The markets will freak out. That'll be wonderful, wonderful. And they're going to cut back and make discretionary spending. It'll come to a halt. Yeah. Oh, do you think maybe the unions would start to riot here? Wouldn't that be great? We could have fires in the street here.